For thousands of years, California existed unknown by the civilizations of Europe. Only native peoples lived in her valleys, swam in her ocean and rivers, and lived off her bounty. Beginning in the 1770s, however, while General Washington was leading rebels in the American Revolution, another revolution began in Alta California when Father Junipero Serra and the Spanish Franciscan monks celebrated Mass at Monterey for the first time. Prehistoric California had ended, and modern California began to work her way through Spanish, Mexican, Californio, and eventually American rule with the discovery of gold in 1848. Along the way there would be floods, fires, earthquakes, masses, and murders, all worked to shape the priests, soldiers, and natives as cultures collided. These are the stories of the California missions. Mission San Gabriel Arcangel is also known as the Pride of the Missions and was established September 8, 1771 by Father Junipero Serra. It is the fourth in the chain of 21 California missions. Archangel Gabriel, seen in the top center of the retablo, had the power to announce the will of God to people and foretold the birth of John the Baptist. To his left is St. Francis of Assisi, and to his right is St. Anthony of Padua. On the lower level, from left to right, are St. Joaquin, the Virgin of the Immaculate Conception, and St. Dominic. Each figure is made from polychrome wood and comes from the 1790s. The mission had to move from its original site by 3 miles in 1775 to improve conditions for agriculture. Once established, the new mission began its task of converting the native Tongva people. The Tongva, renamed Gabrieleño by the Spanish, occupied the entire Los Angeles basin, from the Santa Monica Mountains in the west to as far as Redlands in the east. They occupied the 4 Channel Islands just offshore and lived off the sea as well as the land. The Tongva arrived in the area about 7,000 years ago, and their culture was almost wiped out by the arrival of the Spanish. They were used as slave labor to build Mission San Gabriel. Despite this, between 1771 and 1834, around 25,000 baptisms took place. This was the most of any mission. Newly baptized natives were referred to as neophytes. This lithograph by Louis Corus shows natives dressed in garments that they wove at the mission or that were given to them by the Franciscans. At the same time, they are playing a native game of chance. The picture shows how the natives were creatively able to mix imported and local traditions in the new circumstances that confronted them. Still, some Native Americans rebelled and tried to escape the mission. This pen and ink wash image depicts Gabriel Moraga wearing the traditional dress favored by the Californios. Moraga lifts a corner of his heavy sleeveless coat, cuero, revealing layers intended to block arrows. The garment gave rise to the term soldado de cuera, or leather jacket soldier. Soldiers like Moraga would have been sent to retrieve any native who sought to escape the mission. Moraga's wife, Ana Maria Bernal, is dressed in the refined attire which signaled the emergence of the European social system in California. Mission San Gabriel served as a trade center because it was at the crossroads of 3 trails. It was known for its unique Moorish style, capped buttresses, and tall, narrow windows. Mission San Gabriel provided food for other missions and created large-scale viticulture in California. The Campo Santo, or cemetery at the mission, is the oldest in LA County. It is also the first Catholic cemetery in California. The crucifix is a memorial to the 6,000 Indians buried there. In 1834, the mission was secularized and entered into the rancho period of California history. One rancho is especially important to the students at El Rodeo School in Beverly Hills.
Old Spanish ranches, and right down here, Rodeo de las Aguas is what El Rodeo School is named after. And that is where Mrs. Smith now teaches.
No longer used as a mission, the buildings fell into decay. In the 1850s, squatters even set up part of the old mission as a saloon. Today, restored, renewed, and reopened after an earthquake in 1987 and an arsonist in 2020, the museum at Mission San Gabriel does an excellent job of telling the mission story and houses many artifacts important to the history of California's missions. The museum also does an unusually good job of telling the story of Native peoples past and present in the area. Before we leave Mission San Gabriel Arcangel, let's step into the church. This area is adjacent to the west wall of the church and is one of the few rooms that is structurally intact. The barrel vault ceiling is original, along with many of the floor tiles and windows. It is used as a dressing area for the priests and altar servers before services. Just leaving the sacristy area is a staircase that leads to the bell tower. The current bell tower was erected in 1828 to replace the one destroyed in 1812. Mission San Gabriel Arcangel has a beautiful sanctuary built from cut stone. Along the walls, as with all the missions, are paintings of the 14 stations of the cross. On the right is the pulpit. The pulpit is fastened to the wall and raised well above the floor. It is not known exactly when the pulpit was constructed, but it is believed to have been finished before the building's completion in 1801. The church is the final resting place of several Franciscan fathers buried here in the 1800s. I've already described the statues at the altar, but the reredos, the screen behind them, is original to the current mission and was commissioned by the King of Spain around 1795.
The roof here was put in the 19th century to satisfy the taste of the day.
The mission doesn't have an organ, but the baptistry features a hammered copper font brought from Spain as a gift from King Carlos III. The baptistry, along with the sacristy, stand as they originally did, and their walls, windows, and beautiful ceilings have remained untouched architecturally. The missions have become a symbol of all of California, and in these advertisements, Old Mission and Dos Palmas brands both make use of Mission San Gabriel Arcangel for their advertising. And speaking of advertising, don't forget to exit through the gift shop. Mission San Luis Obispo de Tolosa is the fifth mission in the chain and is named after St. Louis, Bishop of Toulouse, who gave to the poor, denied his own needs, and died at age 23. He was the second son of King Charles II of Naples. The mission was founded September 1, 1772 by Father Serra after the fathers found La Cañada de los Osos, an 8-mile-long stream in what is now Santa Clara County, California, on a failed trip to Monterey. In 1772, the year of the mission's founding, there was a shortage of food at Mission Carmel, and so a hunting expedition was sent to Los Osos to kill grizzly bears for meat. The Native Americans there, who feared the bears, were grateful and traded seeds to show their thanks. Given this, Father Serra decided San Luis Obispo would be a good site for Spain's fifth mission.
San Luis Obispo.
A statue of a grizzly bear is in the mission's plaza as a reminder of the events. In 1772, Father Caballero was put in charge of building the mission, and here you can see an example of the mission's adobe walls. The first buildings were made from wood. In 1776, a Native American shot a flaming arrow onto one of the roofs and burned the buildings down. The structures were rebuilt, this time using tiles on the roofs for protection. Adobe roof tiles began here in San Luis Obispo. San Luis Obispo's walls are 50 to 60 feet high due to the Vatican law, which said they should be at least tall as the local trees, here the pine trees. It is one of the only missions still on its original site and is unique because of its L shape. Mission San Luis Obispo was known for wine, which was produced largely from the slave labor of the Chumash people, who were baptized here and not allowed to leave. In 1819, the quadrangle of the mission was completed and 2 bells from Peru arrived. Along with all the other missions, San Luis Obispo was secularized in 1834 and closed its doors. In 1842, the last Franciscan monk died here, and in 1845, the mission was sold to Captain John Wilson for $510. In 1846, the mission was used by John C. Fremont for the war with Mexico, the Bear Flag Revolt, and eventually became the first courthouse and jail in San Luis Obispo County. In 1850, the mission was returned to the Catholic Church. In modern times, Mission Plaza was opened in downtown San Luis Obispo in 1970, and in 2020, a statue of Father Serra, similar to this one, was removed by the mission to keep it from being vandalized by people protesting against racism. Mission Plaza is still used today for demonstrations and protests, and the mission is once again used for religious services. They are a fascinating stop along the El Camino Real. Mission San Francisco de Asis was founded June 29, 1776 by Father Junipero Serra, just 5 days before the Declaration of Independence. As a plaque notates, it marks the northernmost terminus of the El Camino Real as Padre Serra knew it. It is named after St. Francis of Assisi, founder of the Franciscan order. The mission's reredos was crafted in Mexico and brought to San Francisco in 1797. On the top row to the far left is a statue of St. Francis in ecstasy. On the far right is a statue of him with the stigmata.
Out of all the missions we've been to on this trip, here in San Francisco is the only time we've seen this. One of what would have been what the natives lived in, one of their houses.
The Ramaytush and Ohlone tribes were nearby to the mission site and provided labor to build the church.
Interesting that this is the only one that's had one in San Francisco. So this is what Mission Dolores looked like back in the day. Excuse our reflections. There's the hills, and there's the river Dolores, which is how it got its nickname. That's all paved over now, though.
Mission Dolores, the mission's nickname, survived the 1906 earthquake and the fire that destroyed much of San Francisco. But don't forget, that event took place 130 years after the mission had been founded. San Francisco de Asis is the oldest intact building in San Francisco and the only intact mission chapel established under Father Serra. While the mission has what some would consider a simple exterior, it has a beautiful and sophisticated interior. At its peak, between 1810 and 1820, the mission supported a population of 1,100 people and thousands of farm animals. This elaborate pattern on the ceiling of the sanctuary was originally painted by the Native Americans using vegetable-based paint. This tight spiral staircase going up to the organ loft was added later to Mission Dolores. There used to be an exterior staircase to gain access. The altar features statues of the saints for whom the missions were named. We've already learned about the 2 figures of St. Francis of Assisi. The other 3 figures on the top row of the reredos are St. Joachim, St. Michael the Archangel, and St. Clare of Assisi. On the bottom row are Mary, the crucifix, and on the bottom right, St. Anne. To the left of the reredos are the figures of St. John of Capistrano, St. Joseph, and St. Bonaventure. To the right of the reredos are the figures of St. Pasquale of Bellone, St. Anthony of Padua, and St. Francis of Solano. Due to the inclement weather of San Francisco, high disease and high mortality rates among the natives plagued Mission San Francisco de Asis.
Surprisingly large cemetery here. Mission Dolores. A lot of expensive real estate in San Francisco.
By 1832, 5,000 Native Americans had died here.
In prayerful memory of our faithful Indians. The people that didn't know who they were, they put in a mass grave here. Probably a lot of those were Native Americans. Or Indians, as they used to say.
While the Native Americans' graves are largely unmarked throughout the mission system, there are several non-native graves of note here at San Francisco de Asis.
Here is the grave of Don Luis Antonio Arguello, first governor of Alta California under Mexican rule. From what we could see, or what we've learned, Junipero Cerro is about 5'2", but this statue of him is quite a bit taller.
In 1817, Mission San Rafael was established north of San Francisco as an asistencia, or helper to Mission Dolores, to help with the health of the natives. In 1821, after the Mexican War of Independence, the Mexican government took control over the mission. In 1833, Mexico secularized all the California missions, and missions like Mission Dolores were forced to sell commercial properties. By 1836, most of the property had been sold. By 1842, only 8 Native Americans were still here. In 1848, the Mexican-American War ended, and the gold rush began in earnest in San Francisco. California became a state on September 9, 1850. In 1906, earthquake damaged the mission, which was built with these adobe bricks, but it remains standing.
This is not the mission, but this is Mission Dolores Basilica right next door. Dwarfs the mission, but we're the peak.
Mission San Francisco de Asis was elevated to a minor basilica in 1952, the first west of the Mississippi, and today it has a wonderful, unexpected museum in the middle of San Francisco. Exit through the gift shop.